Right, so FIPS 140, it's basically the U.S. government's benchmark, the gold standard, really, for securing the absolute foundation of digital trust.
Hmm.
These things called cryptographic modules. It essentially spells out the strict security requirements that these modules have to meet. No skipping steps.
Okay, cryptographic modules.
Right.
When we say that, what are we actually talking about? It's just like physical hardware, or is it broader than that?
Oh, it's definitely broader now. It covers both hardware and software. And actually, increasingly, it's about the software that, runs so much of our digital lives. Think about dedicated hardware security modules, HSMs. They're like, super secure vaults for keys and data.
Right, the physical boxes.
Exactly. But then you've also got trusted platform modules, TPMs. Those are chips built right into your laptop or server, providing that hardware level trust. It also covers things like encrypted USB drives you might use. And importantly, even the software libraries that handle encryption for, say, your web browser or secure messaging apps. All of those are examples of crypto modules that need to meet these FIPS standards.
Got it. So it's really about making sure the tools doing the actual encryption work are secure themselves. Okay, let's talk evolution then. We're moving, or have moved really, from FIPS 142 to 143. When did that happen, and why was it so necessary?
Well, FIPS 142 came out way back in 2001.
Wow, 2001. That's ancient in tech years.
It really is. So yeah, it's being phased out now. Its successor, FIPS 143, was officially introduced in 2019. And a really key aspect of 143 is that it's specifically designed to align with an international standard, ISO IE 19790.2012. That's a big change.
Okay, 2001 versus 2019. The internet, the whole digital world looked completely different back then. What kind of challenges popped up over those nearly 2 decades that really forced this update? Why wasn't 142 enough anymore?
That's the core question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. We saw the explosion of cloud computing, virtualization, software-defined everything. FIPS 142 was largely designed with, let's say, a more traditional hardware-focused mindset. It just couldn't keep up with the complex threats in these newer environments. And, it also wasn't great for a global tech world that really needed security standards that worked better together internationally. Harmonization became key.
That makes a lot of sense. So the tools changed, so the rules had to change too. So let's get into the nitty-gritty then. What are the really big differences? What makes FIPS 143 such a, well, game changer compared to 142?
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. What's fascinating is how 143 really reshapes things. The first major shift is probably the standard basis. Like I mentioned, FIPS 142 was mainly a U.S. federal thing, kind of stood on its own. But FIPS 143 explicitly aligns with that international ISO standard, ISO IEC 19790.
So it's going global, basically.
Exactly. It creates a more globally recognized baseline for security. That means, better consistency, better interoperability, whether you're dealing with U.S. government systems or international commercial products. It just makes things smoother.
That international alignment definitely sounds like a win. Okay, so besides the foundation standard, how did the actual scope change? What kinds of things does 143 cover that 142 didn't really?
Right. And this is huge for modern tech. FIPS 143 really acknowledges how things work today. 142 is mostly focused on, those traditional hardware modules we talked about, maybe some basic software. But 143, the scope expansion is significant. It explicitly embraces all these newer use cases, cloud environments, complex hybrid setups, mixing cloud and on-premise, software-only modules, even virtual modules running inside virtual machines.
Ah, okay, so it's not just about the physical box anymore. It's wherever the crypto happens.
Precisely. It's about securing the cryptographic functions regardless of where they live.
That seems essential. Now, if you're covering all these new complex scenarios, especially software and virtual ones, that must mean the testing has to be tougher, right?
Yeah.
Well, how did the testing rigor change?
Oh, absolutely. It's a night and day difference in some ways. You could think of a 142 self-testing as maybe less formally defined, more like an occasional checkup. FIPS 143 mandates much stricter self-testing. We're talking required startup tests, conditional tests that run when certain functions are called, and even runtime tests that happen continuously.
This is constantly checking itself.
Yeah, it's like having a built-in, always-on diagnostic system. It makes it way harder for a vulnerability to slip through or for the module to get compromised without, setting off alarm bells immediately.
That sounds way more proactive. What about physical attacks? If we're talking hardware, how did physical security requirements evolve?
Good point. FIPS 142 had guidance, sure, but 143 really cranks it up. It demands much stricter physical protections and more sophisticated tamper resistance mechanisms. It's not just about showing evidence of tampering after the fact, although that's still there at lower levels. At higher levels, it's about actively resisting the physical attack itself, making it incredibly difficult for someone with hands-on access to get secrets out or mess with how it works without being stopped or detected.
Okay, that's definitely reassuring for hardware. Now, thinking about how these modules talk to the outside world, what about the module interfaces? Especially with those sneakier attacks you hear about.
Yeah, that's another key improvement. 142 had, let's say, more basic checks on interfaces. FIPS 143 goes deeper. It mandates robust error handling. How does the module react when something unexpected happens? And crucially, it adds requirements for side channel controls.
Side channel, like power analysis or timing attacks.
Exactly those kinds of things. Attackers can be really clever. They don't always try to break the crypto directly. Sometimes they just watch how the module operates, its power fluctuations, how long operations take to try and figure out secret keys. FIPS 143 forces designers to build in defenses against that kind of information leakage.
Wow, okay. That sounds like a much more sophisticated level of defense. Now, you mentioned 143 explicitly covers software modules. How are they treated differently compared to 142?
This is a really important distinction. Under 142, software modules were often sort of evaluated using criteria that were maybe more appropriate for hardware. It didn't always capture the unique risks of software. FIPS 143 requires specific software threat modeling. Developers have to actively think like an attacker targeting software, identify potential vulnerabilities unique to that environment like buffer overflows or certain API misuse, and show how they've mitigated them.
So a totally different mindset for software security. And what about actually proving you've dealt with attacks like those side channel ones? The mitigation of attacks, was that always required?
That's a critical point. Under FIPS 140-2, explicitly demonstrating mitigation against specific sophisticated attacks, especially side channel analysis, wasn't strictly mandatory across the board. It might have been considered, but it wasn't a required standalone section. In FIPS 143, it is a mandatory section, particularly regarding side channel analysis. Modules must be designed and tested to show they can counteract these types of attacks. It basically closes off a potential avenue that wasn't as rigorously checked before.
No more optional extras there then. Okay, for the companies actually going through this validation process, what about the paperwork? How did the documentation requirements change?
Yeah, the dreaded documentation. FIPS 142 was sometimes a bit flexible, accepting custom formats, which could lead to, well, inconsistencies. FIPS 143 brings in a strict requirement for ISO-style documentation. It aligns with international standards for technical documentation, meaning it's much more standardized, structured, and, frankly, rigorous. It makes the evidence presented for validation clearer, more consistent, and easier for the labs and validators to assess thoroughly. It kind of streamlines the whole process, even if it's more work up front.
Standardization does usually help clear things up. But okay, getting certified is one thing. What about staying certified? How did certification validity change? Does a 143 certificate last longer or work differently?
That's another practical improvement. With FIPS 142, the validity was often just tied to that version of the standard. When the standard got updated or deprecated, even perfectly good modules could sort of fall off the list or face uncertainty. FIPS 140-3 introduces clearer lifecycle management and defined paths for revalidation. It provides a better roadmap for how modules maintain their certified status over time, adapting to minor updates or changes without necessarily needing a full, ground-up recertification every single time. More predictability.
That sounds much more sustainable. And lastly, just touching on the labs that actually do the testing, what about the lab testing requirements themselves, the real hands-on evaluation?
Right. The Cryptographic Module Validation Program, CMVP, relies on accredited labs. Under 140-2, the test plans and structures were, again, perhaps a bit simpler. FIPS 143, because it's built on those ISO standards, ISO IE 19790 for requirements and ISO IE 24759 for testing, requires the labs to perform more granular, formal validation against those international standards. It essentially raises the bar for the testing procedures themselves, ensuring a more consistently deep and thorough evaluation across different labs.
Okay, wow. That is a lot of changes. It really sounds like a comprehensive overhaul, touching pretty much every aspect. So stepping back a bit, what does this all mean for us, the end users? How do these stricter rules translate into the security levels we sometimes see mentioned?
Yeah, that's the key takeaway, right? How does this affect actual security? Both FIPS 142 and 143 use that four-level security structure. You've probably seen products advertised as FIPS Level 2 or Level 3. For Levels 3 and 4, 140-3 explicitly adds requirements for new much more comprehensive protections.
This is the upgrade part.
Exactly. Protections against those environmental anomalies I just mentioned, but also against tampering using things like fault injection. That's where attackers try to induce errors by, say, glitching the power supply or the clock signal, hoping to force the module into an insecure state. And critically, it mandates protections against those sophisticated side-channel attacks we discussed earlier, power analysis, timing analysis. This wasn't as explicitly or universally required at these levels under 142.
So levels 3 and 4 under 140-3 are actively designed to fight off these really modern, subtle attack vectors.
Precisely. It's a significant upgrade in resilience against the kinds of advanced threats that security researchers and, unfortunately, attackers have developed over the years.
That really puts the evolution into perspective. So if we were to sum it all up, why is FIPS 143 seen as such a critically important step forward? What are the main takeaways?
I think it really boils down to maybe three core things. First, that harmonization with international standards. It just makes things work better globally. Second, it dramatically improves support for modern cryptographic use cases. Cloud, software, virtual environments. It actually reflects how we use crypto now, which 142 didn't handle nearly as well. And third, and maybe most importantly for trust, it introduces stricter testing, clearer evaluation criteria, and mandatory mitigation for more advanced attacks. The whole process is just more rigorous, leading to, hopefully, more assured security.
And connecting that back to you, the listener, what this really means is that the fundamental technology protecting your data, whether that data is, sitting in a big cloud data center on your own phone or laptop, or just flying across the internet, it's now being designed, built, and independently tested against a much tougher, more up-to-date security standard. It's all about reinforcing that foundational trust in the digital systems we rely on constantly, often without even thinking twice about it.